know what's going to happen. The board's going to change possibly again next election. You know, a lot of factors come into play, but I think all of us on this board want to make sure that we hold the line, we follow the plan. We would like to have a cash surplus to kind of restore the, like I was saying, to not have to depend on that paycheck from the state of Illinois every year that we're dangling because we can't implement reading recovery or we can only implement one teacher at a school. This would give us a new start, a new beginning to go forward, and you just have to trust us.
Just one more comment. He asked if we would reinstore some programs if we pass this. I think the board would have to look at that, but we've got to keep in mind that we've got a deficit reduction plan that we have to implement. Last year we did have a balanced budget, but the things you have to understand is we started the year with a $2 million debt on our credit card. And then we run into another problem with our lack of revenue in the beginning of the year. It would be, for example, for you guys, if you started out January 1st with $2 million on your credit card, and then you didn't receive a paycheck till nearly the end of February. How do you pay all those bills in January and February? That's why we've been going for this line of credit, because we don't receive our revenue right at the beginning of the year. So we have to cover our bills at the beginning of the year through this line of credit. Now, if we follow the deficit reduction plan, that'll get us back to an even keel, but that doesn't really address those first few months of the year until we receive revenue. So we still have to follow the deficit reduction plan, even if we put this cash in there, because we cannot go back to zero, because we're not out of the hole at all.
It doesn't address the market.
What are you going to do if the state gets farther behind?
That's a scary thought.
Well, I'd say it's a reality. It's going to happen.
It is, and that's what I'm saying is that, you know, I really don't count on them at all. So what as a community are we going to do to still support this district?
Well, the other thing I have a problem with is the pension.
Right.
I haven't heard anything come. Does your deficit reduction plan have anything to reduce pension? It looks like the state of Illinois plays plenty enough money in pensions to solve all of our problems. What are we doing to control pensions? Does the board have any control of that? Do our local taxes go to any of the pension funds? Is that in your budget, a certain part?
I think I can address everything you just asked, plus kind of explain to you, or I'll start with you first. When we talk about the deficit in the fund, in the education fund, I kind of relate it to Albert Pujols' batting average. He has a different batting average every year, but he has a lifetime average. Well, the lifetime average of that ed fund is that it's $2 million in the hole, which means that we've overspent it by $2 million over since the beginning of time. Okay, the working cash bonds, we take $2 million of that, put it in the ed fund, and bring that balance to zero. Now then, if we don't do anything then on the budget side, we'll go right back in the same hole, because we're overspending by $1 million a year in the ed fund. So we go right back in the same hole. So the working cash doesn't fix the budget, it gets rid of that deficit. The deficit reduction plan fixes the budget so that we reduce our expenditures, so that we don't go back in that hole and it stays the same. Now then, the rest of the answer to your question is, if we follow that deficit reduction plan and if it works, at the end over here, at the end of the 5 years, we should have that $2.1 million sitting there as a balance in the ed fund. It doesn't go away, it should be there. If the plan works, it should be there. The difference is we did away with all the negative financial things at the very beginning, and we just manage the money. We have that money at the end of the 5 years. Instead of having a 100-something thousand, whatever it is, balance in the ed fund, we'll have that plus the 2.1 million if that deficit reduction plan works. So that's the difference in the fund balance and the budget itself. It's two separate issues. Your question, the first one was about state revenue. In the deficit reduction plan, we're not counting on the state to do everything they're supposed to do. Especially in the ed fund, which is the biggest part of the state money, we're projecting flat revenues from the state. We're not projecting any growth at all through the course of the plan for that. And because we're just like you, we don't trust them either.
I'm not worried about growth, I'm worried about decline.
Yeah, well, that's why we're doing a flat. That's why we're doing a flat. Now, as part of pensions, the school board really doesn't have control over the pension system. That's a state function. Now, we do contribute to the pensions. For TRS employees, which are all the certified employees, teachers, administrators, anybody with a certificate that are under TRS, the board contributes a small amount each year, about $300,000 a year out of $6 or $7 million that goes into the state. For non-certified employees that are under IMRF, we contribute a greater portion of that, and that's the IMRF levy that we do each year as part of that overall tax rate.
What is IMRF?
Illinois Mutual Retirement Fund.
Okay.
It's a state subsidized retirement program for non-certified employees.
Okay, that was one of my questions.
Thank you.
The problem, I mean, when you look at some of those pensions, and actually a person from our district is getting $188,000 a year, you begin to wonder, where is the money really should it go to? Do we really care about our kids, or do we care about the pension fund? That's what my problem is.
Well, the funding.
I know it's the state regulations you're gonna tell me.
No, that's not what I'm telling you. What I'm going to tell you is the funding crisis for the pension fund is because over time the state didn't fund their part of it. So now it comes under scrutiny. I mean, it is a nice retirement. I'm a TRS retiree. It's a nice retirement. I contributed whatever the amount was, the 14% all the years I worked, and it's a nice retirement. I would stand here before you tell it's a nice retirement, but I did it for 30-something years, and it is what it is.
If you look at the number of retired teachers or administrators that are making $20,000 a month, you wonder, I mean, it's a damn good retirement.
Well, I'd like to have that one.
Well, I mean,
Sign me up for that one.
you go and look, and there are at least about 15 to 20 people that are making that in the state of Illinois.
You're hitting on probably the biggest crisis of education right now.
Well, and if we really care about the kids, we better face that.
That's
All
right.
this other is,
That's absolutely right. The teacher retirement system is one of the richest benefit teacher retirement systems in the country. They go out early age. They have a COLA of 3% per year, which is the most ever, and it's a defined benefit plan. And there's been proposals in Springfield to change that. School board associations haven't participated in those discussions. No, they participate in the discussions, but they don't take a side. And that's why our board passed a resolution saying, Luda, School Board Association, get off your butt and do something on our behalf, because if they don't take care of that problem, we will see declines in state support for education, period. But let me just give you an example, and it's today, of how bad that thing is. You know, they're looking for a new executive director. They made an offer to a person. He's currently a sitting state legislator and a sitting high school superintendent. And he will get about $125,000 pay bump when he goes into that job with the School Board Association. And they are participating in the TRS even though they are not state employees and not teachers any longer. And that's why they haven't gotten involved yet. That's why they have to get involved, because they're as much a part of that problem as the teachers. So we got to take care of that. If we don't take care of that, we're gonna, they're already cash flowing us what, $4 million? Do they owe us $4 million right now?
State?
Yeah. So there's our line of credit right there. And I'll tell you, they wouldn't have needed to do that if they. Now, when the line is, well, the state underfunded the system all these years. Well, guess who they funded more than they should have? Schools, education. I mean, it's a fact. Education got the benefit of the dollars that should have been going into the retirement system. And the teachers themselves are telling legislators, because I was in those rooms, put it over there because that, you know, if you put it in state aid, it'll increase our salaries, which will increase our retirement benefits when we go. They didn't want it going into the retirement systems. This was in the 80s and 90s. And we fought those battles back then. But it's a big battle right now.
I have a question.
Kristen was, she.
I needed clarification of something. We have this deficit reduction plan that's gonna run for 5 years. 3 years, okay, we're under the gun from the state. Boy, they come into this discussion a lot, don't they? We're under the gun from them to do this, right? Because we have an actual real deficit in our education fund, not only currently, but historically. If we sell the working cash bonds and we erase that deficit and have 2.3 million sitting in the working cash bond or wherever, are we no longer under the gun? Can we abandon that deficit reduction plan? Will we abandon it? If we erase the deficit, then we no longer need the plan, do
If we
we?
get that 2.2 million, if we get the 2.2 million and we put it in the ed fund and erase that, or we still?
Sorry. Are you asking, John, if we get that 2.2 million and put it in the ed fund, that eliminates the debt,
My
gets us back?
understanding is that the $4 million will erase the deficit.
No, the 4 million addresses the line of credit that we have to borrow.
6.2 million is gonna make us perfect.
Make
We're not
it
gonna
a
have-
good world.
We're gonna erase the deficit in the ed fund and have 2 point whatever million left.
If we don't put it in the ed fund.
Okay.
Okay, because that's where it gets confusing with school finances. I mean, you have all these funds. We, instead of putting it in the ed fund, we take it and we put it in the working cash, unrestricted fund.
My question is that we're then no longer under the gun from the
No,
state.
we still will follow the deficit reduction plan.
Okay. Right now,
But
we're doing it because we
It
have.
will definitely help our outlook with the state.
Yeah, that keeps us off the watch list, right?
I can't guarantee that, I don't think, but it'll be a big improvement and a big A+ of what we're doing.
I gotta be honest with you, my biggest concern about 2.3 million laying around there
I know.
is that I used to bargain teacher contracts.
Right.
I'd love to bargain with you after you have that 2.3 million, because that's what I'm gonna go after
Right.
for my teacher's salary.
But in the deficit reduction plan, we have certain caps that we will follow. And again, it is, I think that is the biggest worry for everyone, is if we put that 2.2 million in the working cash, what are we gonna do with that?
That's my concern.
Are we gonna
And
blow it?
I know the union's gonna be after it, all of them.
In reality, at the end of the 3-year period, the difference is this. In the current deficit reduction plan, we're going to end up, I think, hopefully, assuming everything works the way that we plan, assuming that the state, who controls most of our means, pays us at least what we have budgeted, we'll come up with about $100,000, I think, in positive balance. Is that correct? Roughly, in the education fund. So the difference would be you'd have perhaps that and the 2.2 sitting there at the end of the 3-year period. And you are right. At the end of that 3-year period, we have that money.
Yeah.
And the deficit reduction plan will have done its job, and it'll be up to the board to continue budgeting appropriately so that that money is put to best use.
Thank you.
Kristen. Hi, Bud. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. I want to personally thank each and every one of you school board members. You do a tireless, thankless, payless job, taking away from your family time, and not only on the evenings, but also during the week. I really appreciate it. I guess part of my questions have been answered. Because you had said something about we're not doing anything to fix the problem, but with the deficit reduction plan, we are. When I hear you talk about in 3 years, without passing the $6.2 million, we will have $100,000 plus. So my question is, why do we need it? if in 3 years we're going to have a positive net?
Only 2.1 of it addresses the debt you're talking about. That's the part. The other 4 million is for the line of credit, that money that we've pre-spent ahead. That's still there. The deficit reduction plan won't affect that. The only way you would ever affect that would be to the point that you were generating enough money extra in those funds that you would have extra cash laying around, and you could eventually pay off that 4 million down the road, however many years it took. But it doesn't address it. So the 4 million goes to the line of credit, so we don't have to borrow that money every year, and the 2.1 million goes to the ed fund deficit. So you're correct. If we didn't do the 2.1 million part of it, and the deficit reduction plan would eliminate that over time. The advantage is we do the 2.1, we put it in there, the deficit's gone, and all that negative financial stuff's gone, and the plan works. We've got the 2 million left at the end of the plan.
So in 3 years, we can get rid of the $2 million debt. We still have the $4 million
Exactly.
debt. Can we go another 6 years and erase that $4 million?
You'd have to
With keeping that reduction plan intact?
We wouldn't probably have very much left in the school district if we had to do that.
What, not left in the school district, what are you talking
Because
about?
to make major cuts of 4 million, just trying to sorry.
Because we're just trying to keep our budget balanced with the deficit reduction plan. After that, then yes, we still want to live within our means, balance the budget, but we're just hoping that we have enough revenue to cover the expenses to break even. I don't foresee, either unless a referendum passes or the state of Illinois just hits the jackpot, we will not have any extra cash to pay down the 4 million. To do that, we would have to make major cuts within our school district, and we've already cut 11 million within the past 5 years. We're having to cut another million now. So what I'm saying is, in my interpretation, that we wouldn't have a school district is that we would have to cut so badly that I just don't see how it could happen.
All right, I guess a question is, with the $1 million reduction, are we still spending more than we're taking in?
No, the $1 million, we need to cut the $1 million for this next upcoming school year to balance our budget for the remaining years. We still need to get rid of $1 million or receive $1 million more in revenue every year, which we don't foresee happening, in order for us to balance the budget.
I want to address this question, and I will tell you up front, Stephanie and Bud and I disagree on the accounting question of this. I may be wrong, I'm not sure, but I believe the 4 million going into the education fund addresses the 2.2 million plus the money we have to borrow at the beginning of the school year to cover the deficit for salaries that we don't have in revenue. So the 2.2 million we're putting in working cash will just be sitting there. Is that right?
Well, I mean, we can do either.
Well, anyway, that's how I see it, and I look at the 2.2 and the 4 million as overlap.
I would also say that probably not the most popular thing to say, but reality, I think. I think there's a perception in the community, not that every board that's ever served here in Quincy has not made mistakes. When I joined the board, there was a minus $8 million deficit in the self-insurance fund. Today, we've got about 1.6 million to the good. So we've done some good things, as well as probably all boards have made some mistakes. But I think there's an overall perception that the school board over the past several years has just been spending money like banshees. And I think that if you look at what really has happened, that's not been the case. We've cut millions and millions of dollars in this district to try to keep our budgets balanced. At the same time, when we talk about means, just remember that all of the means that we have are either covered by you, the local taxpayer, us, the local tax-paying body, and most of it from the state,
Which is paid by us.
which is paid by the tax-paying body. However, even though the state is required to pass that money on to us, they haven't been. So when we talk about overspending, and we talk about right now that the state owes us, under the rules that we were supposed to play by as a school board, they owe us $4 million. So there's $4 million of our means. So on the one hand, somebody characterizes and said, well, we overspent. Well, we didn't overspend what we budgeted if the state would have met its commitments to us. So as Jeff said earlier, part of these problems that we're talking about that are affecting us locally, affecting our students locally, have to do with issues that need to be resolved in the state. And so it is important that we elect appropriate people that are going to represent the interest to try to fix some of these things. This school board is not going to fix the issues in the state pension plan, which we don't control.
Maybe we ought to talk to Randy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Simple question, how will this be worded on the ballot? Sometimes those things are so convoluted that you don't know what you're voting for. You have it. Thank you.
Shop?
Okay, I guess that wraps it up. Oh, Terry?
I have one question. This morning on the news, correct me if I'm incorrect. We're talking about a reduction fund, and I know if I do it at home, what I have to do. And there was a mention of administrators getting $300 and some more. Is that a year? And they didn't address how many people that is including. Could you tell us that how many are going to be getting that?
25 or 28.
Yeah, because if I have to reduce at home, I have to reduce.
I'll try to answer it. Somebody else can probably do a better job. Again, one of the things that we're required to do is to deal appropriately with unions that are represented within our school district. We have one union contract that we just settled with our largest union, the teachers union, and we have 3 more coming due, I believe, up against this summer. That again is a reality of what the board has to deal with on your behalf. We have to negotiate with the unions, and we have to come up with an appropriate way to deal with those. I think we had a reasonable outcome in our last negotiation, and we felt that we held the line as much as possible. The other question that the board has to answer each year is what we do with those who are not represented by a union contract. And the best way to get more union contracts into our school district, for which we have less control, is to deal with all of those folks in an inappropriate or disordinate fashion. And so that's what we had to do last night, is we had to take a look at those individuals who weren't covered under a union contract, which includes our administrative group. When we settled our union contract with the teachers, essentially the teachers in their first year got the equivalent of a flat $328, I believe it was. No percentage increase, just a flat $328. A year ago, the board made the decision to freeze all administrative salaries, all of our principals, all of our administrative office, and roughly, I think there was 24 or 5, roughly. Last night, as a part of looking at all of those other non-union groups that we had, we looked at the administrative group, and we made the decision not to freeze them again the second year in a row, but offer them the same equivalent dollar number as we did the teachers in the teachers negotiated contract, which was $328. So regardless of an administrator made $50,000 or $20,000 or $100,000 or $75,000, each person got $328. That was what the board did last night.
Okay, I think we've taken enough of your time, and we definitely have run over what we planned to do. I'd like to thank you. I'm sure you've been grilled several times recently, so you're up to the task. And I personally will tell you, as the person's name, because there had to be somebody who had to sign when those petitions were turned in. That was me. But, and I said at the time, I wanted to know more about it. And I can tell you tonight, I've been back and forth 3 or 4 times with the questions. So it has helped, and I think that the other people, it wasn't a don't do it, it's let us understand why you want to do this, and then let us make the decision, because in the long run, it is our money. Thank you.
All right, just a couple of things real quick. First, I want to recognize a couple of people. There are some people out here who will be on your ballot this year.